Because I mean, from the beginning of my 12-step work, because I was already a meditator, I would go to an 11-step meeting, which is the step that's about meditation, and people would meditate for 5 minutes, and then they'd spend an hour and a half talking about how hard that was. And I was like, no, you're not getting it. Come on, I just went on 10 days of silent retreat. Like it's, and so I always felt that I had something, and wanted to share something. And eventually, as I kind of grew into my Buddhist practice and became authorized to teach by my own teachers, which is kind of the tradition, I realized I need to share this. And frankly, I was surprised how many people responded. I thought, well, there'll be a few people that might be interested. And then, and part of my recovery was becoming a writer. I was a musician for my whole life. I'm still a musician, but when I went back to school in recovery, I discovered creative writing, and so it was a natural thing to put that down in words. And it's been a striking process. And as you say, I mean, I wasn't the first person to have this idea that there was a connection, but I was very fortunate that my own experiences kind of, worked out, and the timing of it. It was like people were ready, kind of, to start to hear these ideas. It's very exciting to see how mindfulness now has become so key to the whole world, the whole spiritual world, and then to the recovery world as well. And so it used to be that I would mention meditation to people, I would, if I met somebody, and they'd kind of give you a funny look, like, oh, you're one of those weird people. And now, my current addiction is golf. And like yesterday, I'm playing with some young guys. Oh, what do you do? Oh, I teach meditation. Oh, really? Oh, I've been learning that during the pandemic. It's really great. Oh, what do you do? And all of a sudden you're mainstream, and you're like, oh, I thought I was a weirdo. But yeah, so that's kind of the short version of the story of kind of this, how this unfolds.
When you talk about suffering and tell us more about that, the grasping outside of ourselves, and then coming back to that place of, like, how does meditation help us to surrender, right? Like, or the comparison between the steps, like,
so
principles.
So the thing that I think is really important about meditation, and particularly mindfulness, where we're really observing our inner experience, is that we see for ourselves how this process plays. It's one thing to read a book or to have somebody tell you, oh, there's this, craving causes suffering, you should stop craving. It's like, yeah, well, but should I? I mean, I don't know. But the great thing about this practice is that it puts you in the center of the story in a way. So that you are experiencing what's being suggested. So the simple mechanics of mindfulness meditation mean that you're going to sit down and you're going to start to try to pay attention to your breath. And very quickly you're going to see, like, oh, I can't do that. Like my mind keeps slipping from my breath. So I keep coming back to the breath, and I start to get a little bit calm. But after a while, the idea is that I start to see what it is that's happening when my mind wanders. What's going on? So first of all, I see that what's going on is that I'm always trying to create something with my mind. I'm always trying to go somewhere else. I don't want to just be here breathing. I want to plan for the future, or I'm angry about something and I want to keep going over that, or I want to remember something that happened and, either regret it or wish I could go back there. So there's this tendency always to just want to be somewhere else, and to want to be experiencing something else. Like maybe I'm sitting there and I start to feel some pain in my back or something, and I'm like, oh geez, if I could just get rid of this pain, then I could meditate. So we have this idea, or even if I could just get my mind to be quiet, then I'd be okay. So we eventually, hopefully sooner rather than later, we are asked to look at the process and see how we are creating this discomfort for ourselves, because what we start to see is all of this thinking is actually unpleasant. And this is what we call suffering, but it's not necessarily, agony. It's just, it can be very subtle.
Yeah.
And there's a Buddhist word, dukkha, that it's much more subtle and complex than our term suffering. So another way of saying it's unsatisfactory. Like I'm sitting here and things are never quite right. So I start to see that there is this discomfort that comes with all this thinking and getting caught up in this. And then I realize, like, oh, it's me. It isn't that person. It isn't that I don't have something. It isn't that I did something in the past. It's me right now who's creating this problem by the way I'm thinking. And it hurts. It's unpleasant. And then, well, I don't have to do it. If I'm creating it, I can uncreate it. So it's seeing for yourself the real-time experience of creating your own inner suffering or just agitation or disturbance. And then realizing, oh, when I just let that go, when I just come back to my breath, things are okay here and now. They're not perfect, but I can be okay with them. And if I don't fight with them, if I don't try to change them or make them better or get rid of something I don't like, that I'm really okay. And that's what we call in recovery acceptance, right? Acceptance is the answer to my problems today. It's quite simple. But as with all recovery principles, we have to see it for ourselves. We have to hit our own bottom to get sober. And in the same way, we have to kind of hit our own bottom with our own minds for us to engage in the process of letting go, because it's very alluring. Our minds create this illusion that, well, I can figure it out. And once I have it all in place, then I'll be okay. And, our minds are very enchanting. They enchant us with our beliefs and our thoughts, and we get caught up in that. So this simple idea that, oh, if I just let go of this and I'm just hanging out here and with this as it is, that we have to convince ourselves of the truth of that's where happiness exists. We have to convince ourselves the same way, again, that we have to convince ourselves that we're addicts. We keep banging on that door over and over. I can drink, I can take drugs. It's, I can control this. And it's only, for most people, after years of failure at that we realize, oh, that doesn't work. Oh, is there another way?